In fact, Nigeria's mangrove forests are one of the most degraded in the world. And as mangroves disappear, so do the ecosystem services they provide.
Beneath the fertile soil and winding waterways of the Niger Delta lies a resource so valuable that it has fueled the ambitions of nations and corporations alike: crude oil. It is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, providing over 90% of export revenues and contributing substantially to the global oil supply. But for the people who call this region home, oil has come with a bitter cost, a story of destruction, betrayal, and unfulfilled promises. Oil was first discovered in 1956 in the quiet community of Oloibiri, nestled in what is now Bayelsa State. The find was celebrated as a turning point, a moment that would transform Nigeria from a struggling colony into one of the richest nations in Africa. By the 1970s, Nigeria had ascended to the world stage as one of the largest oil exporters, with billions of dollars flowing into government coffers. Politicians spoke of modernization, prosperity, and a future brimming with opportunity. The Niger Delta, the region responsible for this newfound wealth, was promised its share of development and progress. But these promises were never kept. Instead of prosperity, the Niger Delta became a region marred by environmental devastation and systemic neglect. The rivers that once teemed with fish turned black, choked by countless oil spills. Farmlands that fed generations of families became barren wastelands, poisoned by toxic chemicals. The centralization of oil revenues in the federal government meant that the people who bore the brunt of oil production's environmental impact saw little to no benefit. Their cries for help went unanswered. As the decades passed, frustration grew into defiance. By the early 1990s, activists began to rise, demanding justice for the Niger Delta. Among them was Ken Saro-Wiwa, a writer, environmentalist, and leader of the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, MOSOP. Saro-Wiwa and MOSOP accused oil companies like Shell and the Nigerian government of exploiting Ogoni lands, polluting the environment, and disregarding the rights of the people. Armed with weapons and a deep sense of injustice, these militants took up the cause of their people by force. They attacked oil pipelines, sabotaged facilities, and kidnapped foreign oil workers in an effort to draw attention to their plight. Their message was clear: if the government and oil companies would not listen to peaceful protests, they would listen to disruption. But the government's response was equally violent. Military forces were deployed to the Niger Delta, turning communities into battlegrounds. Entire villages were razed, families were displaced, and the region descended into chaos. What began as a struggle for environmental justice and economic equity became a cycle of violence that left scars on both the land and its people. Today, the Niger Delta remains one of the most underdeveloped regions in Nigeria, despite its immense contributions to the national economy. Decades of oil exploration have left a legacy of environmental degradation, with thousands of oil spills still unaddressed. Gas flaring, despite being outlawed in many countries, continues to poison the air. Meanwhile, promises of rehabilitation and development remain largely unfulfilled, as corruption and mismanagement siphon funds away from the projects meant to uplift the region. Youth unemployment is rampant, and many young people feel trapped in a cycle of poverty and hopelessness. Yet, the spirit of resistance endures. It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of injustice. It is a reminder that beneath the surface of every struggle lies the hope for a better future. And so, as the sun rises over the mangroves and waterways of the Niger Delta, it casts its light on a region that still bleeds but refuses to give up. Because when a nation forgets its roots, it risks collapse. And in the Niger Delta, the roots are deep, and the people are determined to rise. The story of the Niger Delta does not end with the tragedies of the past. It is a story that continues to unfold, shaped by the relentless determination of its people, the ongoing struggle for justice, and the stark realities of a region caught between hope and despair. Beneath the surface of its polluted waters and gas-flared skies, the Niger Delta remains a battleground, not just of oil and politics, but of humanity's fight for dignity and survival. The Niger Delta's environmental crisis is one of the most devastating in the world, a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked resource exploitation. According to reports by Amnesty International and environmental organizations like Friends of the Earth, there have been over 12,000 documented oil spills in the Niger Delta since oil was first extracted. These spills have poisoned rivers, rendered farmland unusable, and destroyed ecosystems that once sustained millions of lives. The rivers, once teeming with fish, are now graveyards for biodiversity. Fishermen, whose families have relied on these waterways for generations, see their nets come up empty or filled with oil-soaked debris. Women who once farmed rich, fertile lands are now forced to watch their crops wither and die, their livelihood stolen by the toxic residues of oil production. Nowhere is this devastation more visible than in places like Ogoniland, where decades of oil spills have turned once bountiful lands into wastelands. A 2011 report by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, detailed the catastrophic level of pollution in Ogoniland, stating that cleanup could take up to 30 years. And yet, progress on this cleanup has been glacial, mired in bureaucracy, corruption, and a lack of political will. Despite the Nigerian government's establishment of the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, to address the problem, critics argue that the initiative has been painfully slow, plagued by mismanagement and insufficient funding.